Hello everybody, I am Keaton of Kinetic Catholic Ministries, back with another video. I hope that you all are having an absolutely wonderful Tuesday so far. I know that I am. Guys, this is a big deal because this is my last video as a kid, because next week, Tuesday of next week, I turn 18. And so I guess I got the name changed just in time. But in case you haven't noticed, this is a place that you haven't seen before intentionally. There was a whole bunch of issues with the camera being outside, all this jazz, blah, blah, blah. This isn't going to be normal, I promise, but we got a neat piece of abstract art in the background. So maybe we just have everything we need. Maybe we're meant to be here for this set. Anyway, before we get into today's video, I do want to warn that this, some of what we'll be talking about in this video may not be suitable for all ages. And so typically all my videos are available for every age, but for this video specifically, maybe if you watch it as a family, go ahead and the parents watch it first, but before you decide if you're going to let your kids see it, there's some things that will be talked about in this video. And I know that I'm a little bit late to the party, but I'm sure that if you're very involved in the Catholic world, especially online, then you have seen, heard about, read about somewhere something about the Padre Pio movie starring Shia LeBeouf. And I basically want to explain in this video why I will not be watching that movie and why I advise that you do not either. Here's the thing. There is good that can come from some bad things, right? And we see Shia LeBeouf announce on Bishop Robert Barron on Word on Fire that he is converting to Catholicism. And he's officially now in RCIA to come into the church next Easter of 2024. And it's really, really cool, right? And he plays Padre Pio in this movie, and he researched Padre Pio to ultimately, discover the character that he was going to be playing, and it is what led him to conversion. That's a beautiful thing. That's something that is absolutely to be celebrated, and we are not to knock Shia LeBeouf for performing in this role at all. I mean, clearly he was meant to. It led him to the Catholic faith, which is a very special thing. The movie, in and of itself, has some stuff that is just objectively immoral and wrong to the Catholic Church, sacrilegious. Now, with things like, and I'm sure you've heard it, I'm pretty sure it's in the trailer even, the F-bomb being dropped on a regular basis, even stuff like that was present in Father Stew, right? And stuff like that, it's like, okay, you can get by it if it's important to the plot. And in the Padre Pio movie, it doesn't seem to be. But beyond that, the biggest kind of, in my opinion, the biggest wrongdoing that this film has is during one of Padre Pio's visions or temptations, demonic temptations. There is a nude woman who has a kind of sacrilegious scene with a painting of the Virgin Mary, which is absolutely disgusting. And even if the argument were to come in as to, well, it's just the portrayal of this happening, the act that is done in this movie still had to be committed by the actress in order to in order to film the movie in the first place. It's still sacrilegious, even if it's for film. It's still wrong. It's still objectively very, very wrong. And we know that as Catholics, like we can watch things that have inappropriate things in them so long as they do not lead us into sin, right? We are allowed to watch sinful acts so long as they do not lead us into sin. But what takes place in the Padre Pio movie is an outright a mockery, the disgrace of the Blessed Virgin Mary and of the Catholic Church as a whole. Beyond that, I think that the director has some questionable things in his past. Obviously, we're not one to judge individuals. What we can say is that Abel Ferrara has a quote fairly recently in which he said that he was raised Catholic, and being raised Catholic, they teach you to not think too deeply. That somehow the Catholic Church tries to teach children that it is better to not ask questions, to not think too deeply about things. And then he goes and directs a Catholic movie. First of all, listen, whatever experience the director had as a kid in the Catholic Church, we can pray for him. I'm sure that he very well might have had that experience. That is very, very sad. And then we can pray for him, and it's sad to see him have to go through that. We're not want to judge his past or what he's been through. But it is undeniably dangerous to then go and let it out in a way that somehow the Catholic Church, to every single child, to everybody in their youth, teaches them not to think too deeply, teaches them that you shouldn't question things, when in reality, you are only able to find the truth of the Catholic Church by thinking too deeply, by questioning things, by asking questions. That's what leads you to the Catholic Church. That's present with Shia LaBeouf in converting in this movie, right? I mean, Shia LaBeouf asked questions. Shia LeBeouf researched Padre Pio in order to discover the character that he was playing, and it is what led him to conversion. It is what led him to the Catholic Church. Thinking deeply is required in order to become Catholic, and that's just the reality of it, right? And in fact, in the Catholic Church, we are called to ask questions, right? We are told that it is normal to doubt, because it is. It absolutely is. And this director, having anti-Catholic things of his past, having originally started in a risky industry, it's just some red flags. Now, obviously, people can change. He's actually had interviews about how he has changed, about how he's become a better man. I'm absolutely sure that I'm not one to call anybody a bad person, any of that stuff. What I will say is that when a person has continually had anti-Catholic rhetoric and then goes and directs a Catholic movie, that's where you can kind of be a little bit, okay, like, what's wrong here? That's where you can kind of start to raise an eyebrow and question things. Beyond that, beyond kind of the risky elements of this movie, at least from the reviews, at least from what I've heard, again, because this is interesting, because this is a movie review without it being an exact movie review, because I haven't seen it, right? I'm not going to, and I don't believe that we should be giving our money to something that is so clearly sacrilegious, that has an element, has a scene that is so clearly sacrilegious and crosses the line in so many ways. Because again, even if it's a portrayal, it had to be committed in order to have that portrayal, and that's just drawing the line in every way, shape, and form. And so, but even beyond that, again, according to all the reviews, it's just not a very good movie in general. And I think that those of you who have watched me for a long time know, like in all my movie reviews, I'm a pretty big movie guy, so I don't just like critique and look for the morality of a movie, but also just the movie in general. And I'm really kind of nerdy about like the lighting and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, from what I've heard, from what I've seen, it's just not great in general with Padre Pio. And so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, there are some bad elements, but oh, maybe it's a great movie, and there's like a lot of good that comes from it. From, again, what everybody who has seen it has said, that's really not the case, is that there's not enough to kind of make up for the bad elements that are present in the Padre Pio movie. So again, I don't say this like, oh, we should go and spread hate on the director or anybody involved in it. I also don't say, hey, let's bring down Shia LaBeouf for converting. Clearly, this is a huge movie for him, because it led him to the Catholic faith. That's a beautiful thing. I just think that as Catholics, we don't need to be giving our money to something that had such a sacrilegious act. I just think it's wrong, and that is why I will not be watching this movie. Obviously, Catholics, there have been Catholics who have seen it. There have been Catholics who have defended the movie, right? I've seen the other side of this argument before online and said, well, you got to give it to him. They still portrayed Padre Pio's life, whatever you want to say. And you very well may have that opinion, and that is perfectly okay, right? But this is mine, and I think that it is better that we not watch this movie, that we avoid kind of the riskiness that comes with it, that we avoid giving our money to something sacrilegious while still celebrating Shia LaBeouf's conversion. Oh, my voice just cracked big time. While still celebrating Shia LaBeouf's conversion, still celebrating the fact that it was made to allow him to convert in that first place. Because clearly him getting the role of Padre Pio meant a lot in his life, and then led him to salvation in the Catholic Church, and that is a beautiful thing. So, now that the topic is done, do y'all know what it is time for now? It's time for
the Saint of the Week.
And today's Saint of the Week is, of course, Saint Padre Pio himself, who was a 19th to 20th century saint, dying in 1968. He was Italian, and from a very young age was very devout in his faith. In fact, from the age of 5, he said that he would dedicate himself to God. And throughout his adolescence, he was actually able to speak to and see guardian angels, to talk to Jesus and Mary. And in fact, this came so naturally to him that he just assumed that other people could. This wasn't like a once in a moment, like he just assumed that other people had that ability too. He wanted to enter the monastery, but was told that he required more education before he was allowed to join. So his father, his parents hired a private tutor for him. In order to afford that private tutor, his father actually traveled to America to find work and sent the money home. So his parents were very religious and were completely dedicated to helping their son, which is really, really cool. Who, by the way, was Francisco, not Pio, yet. And then eventually when he was allowed to join the monastery, he then became known as Brother Pio. One time in 1910, when he was hearing confessions, he felt a pain in his hands and feet. Come to find out, the stigmata had appeared. And the stigmata played a really, really important role in the life of Padre Pio because it kind of allowed him to become famous. They had doctors examine it who were really, really surprised by the perfect roundness. There was an investigation by the church who concluded that he had not faked it, that he genuinely did have the stigmata. And people came from all over to examine it. And he was uncomfortable with this kind of just checking on wounds in his hands and feet. And so oftentimes when he's pictured, he'll have wraps around his hands. Again, kind of disguising that, which is really, really neat. He was so dedicated to the Mass and has this famous quote where he says, "Pray, hope, and don't worry." He was absolutely loved and became really, really famous when he eventually died. And he was sickly for a long period of his life and still managed to live as long as he did. Eventually, when he died in 1968, his funeral was attended by over 100,000 people. Imagine being that great a person that many people attend your funeral. Like, that would be sick. St. Padre Pio absolutely had that happen. He was canonized in 2002. His feast day is in September. He was canonized on June 16th, 2002, which is kind of around the calendar where we are. I know we're past it, but it's not that far back, which is pretty neat. So, St. Padre Pio, pray for us. So before you guys click off this video, I'm not just a YouTuber, I'm also a Catholic speaker. So if you want to book me to come and speak at your church, school, men's group, women's group, youth group, parish, you name it, please reach out to us directly at kineticcatholicministries@gmail.com or go to the website kineticcattholic.com, click the contact us page, and reach out to us from there. Also, please check out the website in general. There's so many awesome things you can do on there. You can read about me, you can contact us. All of my videos are up there. Your very own Kinetic shop is up there, so please do go check that out. Please check out all 3 of our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The link to all 3 of those will be in the description down below. Please comment any saint or topic suggestions that you might have for future videos. Please click the share button down below. Share this channel video with your friends and family. Make sure that they know about Kinetic. Once again, I hope that you all are having an absolutely wonderful Tuesday, a wonderful summer so far. We are in the midst of the summer, and it's absolutely my favorite time of year. This was Keaton of Kinetic Catholic Ministries. I will see you all next week, and hi, Brielle.